It's Pioneer. The RCQ season is all Pioneer. You think you will now buy Rakdos cards for Pioneer? Fair enough. Okay, so I actually have a lot of thoughts on this. All right, 1 second. One second, I want to turn some music back on because I'm kind of out of it. Need some vibes. Very small vibes. And also, thanks for everyone being here. If you want to support the stream, hit that Baldwin. That's free to do. It does help support the stream. If you really want to support the stream, consider using a Twitch Prime sub. That's Amazon on your Twitch Prime. Oh, I need to adjust that. Sorry. Should be fine now. Sorry about that. I know what happened. I did not adjust the desktop audio. It should be fine now. Anyways, so Rakdos. In the US, the RCQ is required to be the same format. I believe just this season in general, no matter where you are, they have to be Pioneer or limited. Like, just period. Like, I believe that applies internationally. Someone tell me if I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, obviously I'm wrong, but... So that's not a pure RCQ, that's like a destination event. Brag. Like, if you label it just an RCQ and not like a destination event, that's different, I believe. But obviously, like, that's kind of an arbitrary cutoff. Anyways, I guess I'll explain why I wanted to play Rakdos. I was thinking about playing Greasefang, then I heard one of the events around here was just like 5 Greasefang decks. Like, all near the top 8. And the Greasefang mirrors are pretty unexciting for me to play personally. And also, I think you can build a Rakdos deck that is certainly decent versus Greasefang while being decent versus most other things. So that was one of the ideas. I also think generally that for me personally, at the RCQ level, playing a highly interactive deck is kind of a good thing to do. It prevents you from getting punked out by a lot of like nonsense decks if you play something like Rakdos or 4C or whatever. Just like, if you interact a lot and your deck has like ways to like get ahead on cards or whatever, I think that just pays a lot of dividends, is how I would put it. So that sort of explains why I wanted to play Rakdos, I think, for this season. And I guess I'm not going to play any more RCQs because I'm not allowed to, but that's fine. That was kind of the goal in mind. A few notes. Mana base is actually identical to Shoota's from the Pro Tour. He might have actually had one more Sulfur Springs. I can't remember right now. But I just like Mutavault over Castle Octane. I don't think Castle Octane is actually a playable Magic card personally. I think paying 4 mana to like lose 2 life and draw a card is not actually good. Oh, he had 1 less swamp, a second Sulfur Spring. That's fine. You can do that if you want. I kind of don't like drawing 2 Sulfur Springs, so I cut 1 for a swamp, but certainly okay to play the second Sulfur Springs. And I think these spells are relatively similar. One thing I will note is I'm not a huge fan of Liliana of the Veil. People have asked me about this. I think Liliana is really good in Greasefang and kind of mediocre in Rakdos. And the reason for that is, I think you don't really need to play the Liliana game in Pioneer. Like, try to like Edict them, get another card out of their hand, Edict them again. Like, I don't think that's like actually desirable versus most of the top decks. Liliana's like volatile in the mirrors, how good it actually is. I mean, if I had Liliana on my sideboard, I'd probably side it in and try to set up the good board state for it, but it's not really a reliable plan in my experience, is how I would put it. One other note about that is I like playing Power Word Kill over Go for the Throat because of Sky Sovereign and Asika's Chariot. If those are not your worry, then you can probably split like Go for the Throat and maybe Shieldred's Edict. I like a Braid for similar reasons, although that also has a buyout of, like, killing a small creature, even if you, like, a Mutavault or, like, a Youthful Valkyrie that's, you know, 3 toughness. So, one last thing is, I think it's insane that other people don't play for Shieldred in this format. I also thought it was kind of insane that, like, only the Rakdos deck in Standard played 4 Shieldred. Well, sorry. The Esper Legends deck played 4 Shieldred, and Rakdos sometimes played 4 Shieldred. But I think in Pioneer, Shieldred's even better because it's possible you can just clear the way for it to just not die. You know? And I think Shieldred also correlates to playing 26 lands because it's a 4-drop. Clearly, it's better the quicker you play it. So that was kind of my thought on playing for Shieldred. I've been beating this drum for a while, I think. Some people play like 3 Trespasser, 3 Shieldred. But I think the best follow-up to getting your first Shieldred killed is just playing a second Shieldred, and, you know, that's how it is. With regards to sideboard, I think I would never not play the Duress, Go Blanks, or Extinction events. I think the Damping Spheres are kind of mandatory for me personally, because I think it's like your best weapon versus Lotus Field as Rakdos. I don't like Pithing Needle. I think Necromantia is sometimes defensible. I guess if I had like a third anti-Lotus spot, I would play Necromantia in that spot. But I think the first 2 Damping Spheres are better than the first Necromantia. Unlicensed Hearse is a nod to Neoform and Greasefang. And there's probably like I guess like Phoenix, but Phoenix is not that popular of a deck anymore, so, you know. K-Command, Good and Mirrors. I would side in Hearse versus the Gearhole Creativity deck, but not the other Creativity deck. Like, if it's like Worldspine Worm nonsense, I probably don't have Hearse in my deck. K-Command, I think just a good card in Mirrors, good versus like Gruul vehicles. It's kind of just good in a lot of places, is how I put it. It's a flexible card, so that's why I like having it as well. I didn't want to cut the Ritual of Soot. I think it's a nice buyout versus Angels. It's a nice buyout versus these weird, like, Ancient Imperiosaur Convoke decks. Because I think if you lop them off at the knees by killing all of their tokens, then it's a lot easier to manage an Ancient Imperiosaur. We'll go over that in a sec, Wise Horns. But no, I did not play against that deck this time. I have played against it before, and one thing about that deck is their deck is notoriously soft to creature lands, because they cannot actually kill a creature land. So, that is something worth thinking about. Quietus is a split card. It's anti-aggro and anti-green. So, that's what's going on there. I'm just going to discuss the matchups real quick. I don't want to go like in great detail, because I'm kind of tired from yesterday. So this will be a quick discussion about the matches real quick. All right. It was a 7-rounder in Fairfax, Virginia. 77 people, and it was 1 slot. So my first 2 rounds I played against the Rakdos Mirrors. I just like won 4 games in a row. Round 3, I played against Jund Sacrifice with like Mayhem Devil, Bolus the Citadel, Collected Company. I basically lost game 3 to Bolus the Citadel, which is fine, you know, sometimes that happens. Round 4, I won, I think like games 1 and 3 were not close, and game 2 also wasn't close versus Green. I think that's just kind of how it goes sometimes, you know. Not a big deal. I don't really want to discuss how I sideboard in every matchup because I actually don't remember right now. And B, it's a lot based on how my opponents have played in the previous game 1 or game 2. I will adjust and fine-tune for game 3. So it's kind of hard to like... It's kind of hard to explain all of that, you know. And frankly, I don't even remember. Mono White. This was actually an interesting one. I actually kept on 1-lander with like a Fatal Push and a bunch of removal spells because I knew they were Mono White. Like, it was Fatal Push, Bone Crusher, Blood Tithe Harvester on the draw. Like, maybe you can debate that I should have mulliganed, but I think actually keeping that one lander is better equity to win game 1 than mulliganing to 6 and, like, ending up with, like, a Thoughtseize and a bunch of lands or whatever, you know? Round 6, I played against a friend of mine, Chris Song. He was playing Atarka Gruul, not, like, Gruul vehicles or whatever. So, this matchup, I don't like having Thoughtseize versus them because they're like a bunch of play with fires, ramming that ruins and stuff like this. This is a matchup where Cletus is kind of shines, you know. This and Mono White are where Cletus shine the most, really. Extinction Event's like defensible because it clears out Phoenix Check, but it's kind of a clunker, and I think you would rather just have more efficient removal that works on time, basically. I mean, I had Ritual of Soden, but I think Extinction Event might just not be good enough. You know? Quarterfinals, Rakdos. I lost game 1, like, I think I flooded in game 1. And they, like, stopped at exactly 4 lands. Game 2 was, like, kind of a weird one. On turn 3, I played a Trespasser. And it didn't have anything to eat. And on my opponent's turn 3, they cast Thoughtseize. Took something. Tanked for a while and played Fatal Push on my Trespasser. And I'm like, okay, Ward Trigger. And then they discarded Croxa. And I'm like, okay, Fatal Push resolves. And they kind of just looked at me. And then I looked at them, I'm like, you don't have Revolt. Like, it was very, very weird. I don't even understand how that happened. Like, was this person just playing Fatal Pushes on 3 mana cost creatures on turn 3 without Revolt the entire day? I don't understand what happened, and I basically just untapped, attacked with Trespasser and ate their Crooks, and the game ended. In game 3, they, like, kept a 1-lander with a Blood Tithe Harvester and 2 Power Word kills. I know because I Thoughtseize them on 1, and they didn't have a second land. I was, like, kind of flooded, but I just chose not to play... Like, later they drew a land eventually, but I just chose to wait on playing Shieldred until it was a very inconvenient turn for them to have to cast Power Word Kill. So, you know, these RCQs, some wild shit happens is all I'll say. Game 3 versus Neoform was kind of interesting. It was kind of a sort of different scenario. Basically, Game 3 on the play for me, I had Urborg, 3 black-red lands, and 3 Thoughtseize. And it's kind of debatable if you should keep that hand or not. I eventually chose to keep, with the reasoning being if we both start on 4 cards, I think Rakdos is ahead. They did in fact end up mulliganing, but the game ended up being close. Basically, I Thoughtseize them, take a Tasker. Their hand is like 4 lands and a Thoughtseize. They Thoughtseize me back, take a Thoughtseize because that's all I have. I sit on my 3rd Thoughtseize because there's no reason to play it. On turn 4, they top deck a card and I believe play Tasker. I'm not exactly remembering 100% anymore. We eventually get to a point where they play Founding the Third Path. They mill themselves and hit a Neoform. So I have a 1-turn window to either draw a removal spell for Tasker or Unlicensed Hearse to exile the Neoform from Graveyard. I drew Hearse, played it, set go. They targeted their Neoform with the Founding Third Path trigger. I exiled it in response and managed to win with a Shieldred from there. So, I kind of had to get lucky to draw the Hearse or Power Word kill to kill the Tasker in a 1-turn cycle. And, you know, sometimes that's how it is. Mono White, game 3 I just had, like, on the draw, I had 3 lands, Bone Crusher Giant, Cletus, Shieldred, and some other spell. And I believe I drew either Removal Spell or Blood Tithe Harvester to cast on turn 2, so that made the hand really, really good, and my broken creatures basically just won the game. And, you know, sometimes you finish an RCQ at like 9:20 p.m. or 9:03 p.m. and you're ready to go home and you're done for the season. So yeah, that's all I have about Rakdos from yesterday. Does anyone have any quick questions, I guess? No Croxes? So let me explain philosophically why I believe, for me personally, this is better. I do not like Castle Locthwain as a card. And when you change Castle Locthwain to a Mutavault, you can't just toss a Crox in your deck, because the Mutavaults don't contribute to casting it, which is actually kind of a killer. I also think Kroxa hasn't aged that well. It's okay, but I think Kroxa is actually generally worse than Reckoner Bankbuster, in my opinion. Like, I'd rather just play more Bankbusters than Kroxas. So that's another reason. And I also think if you want to play Mutavault, you need to play 26 lands just so you do have enough colored sources. Because you do have 3 colorless lands in your mana base, you know? So it's not just like, okay, no Croxes, why do you play 26 lands? It all fits together, like, coherently. And I also want to play 4 Shieldred, so I want to play 26 lands as well. I don't like playing more Bankbusters than that because I hate drawing them versus decks where I don't have time to like use all of them. That improves you in the Rakdos Mirror to some degree, but sometimes they can just spend time removing all of your creatures. Also, Shieldred sometimes overwhelms the Bankbuster heavy versions as well. Like, one advantage I have versus another Rakdos decks, a lot of other Rakdos decks, is Shieldred makes their castles and Bankbusters very painful to use. Because I just have 4 of this card. Like, I have it in so many more games than people who play 3, you know? Of course, you can choose to play, like, a bunch of Bankbusters. That just means you'll have a different matchup profile, you know? Any other questions before, get ready to call it? Any Twitch subbers? Any followers? I should have changed the title. Wait, no, that. Oh. Really too late. I basically said everything I wanted to say and I forgot to change the title, so, you know, that's how it is. Alright, guess I'm gonna head off. I'm pretty tired, I just want to rest. First main, is it too greedy for an open meta? I think the metagame would have to be very skewed for you to want main deck Hearse. Like, you would basically need, like, 20% plus graveyard decks to justify playing, in my opinion. And I don't think that's where the format is currently. Alright. Hey, Takanuma. I don't think Takanuma does enough. I mean, you could play Takanuma over a Swamp. That's, like, fine. What I wanted to do was not be so vulnerable to, like, some Maniac Azorius player just, like, fielding me 3 times. But that's, like, maybe too insane. Like, You can play a Takanuma if you really want to, I suppose. I don't think it really changes that much. I guess you and I are on the same page then, with regards to 3 swamps and Field of Ruin, but I don't feel that strongly about that. Alright, chat. I think I'm going to wrap it up and read someone real quick. And thanks, everyone. I'm not sure if I'll be back tomorrow. I might just be heading off to Minneapolis on Thursday to play the PTQs at the Pro Tour, not the Pro Tour itself.